Welcome to the Kidding After Show. We're talking episode 4, Bye Mom. This was my favorite episode. I'm so excited to talk about it. We have so much drama, family drama, a Judy and Jeff face off. I'm not sure there was any winners, but let's talk about it. Stay tuned.
You're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
We have some conflicting judgment on whether this episode was happy or not. Obviously, I think it was happy. There's so much to talk about, you guys. This episode hit a lot with the family. Everyone was included this episode. Yeah. We saw everyone. And we will be hitting Diedre and the fam with a dash of Seb and the drama he's causing, Jeff and Will, and Jeff versus Jill. And we will have a special segment, the Jim Carrey gem. In this episode, we're talking about The Truman Show, one of my all-time favorites, some news and gossip by Rocky, and some predictions. But before we get into it, I want to introduce my lovely host. I'm Steph Sabraw. To my left is Mina Wahab.
Super excited to be here again, guys.
Takira Shabrae.
What up, guys?
And Rocky Harris. Hey. She's back.
Right.
And Mina's back.
I know.
With the whole crew.
We were out.
Before we get into it, you guys, what was your overall thoughts?
I really liked it. It was definitely darker again, but in this episode, there was like this cool juxtaposition between optimism and then, cynicism. We see that with we see a silver lining at the very end, which was nice for Jeff's character.
Agreed.
Yeah, agreed. Just one word to me, you said it, optimism. I think it was just a reminder that optimism is still possible. I'd like to think of myself as an optimistic person.
You are.
I like that it's like chivalry's not dead.
Yeah. I really liked it. I was happy to finally kind of understand why Jeff and Jill had their issues because we had a reveal. So I don't want to get into it before, later on in the show, but that kind of helped me understand why she had such a grief with him. So, and now I'm kind of like, okay, Jeff, you kind of need to, they should honestly go to therapy at this point. Cause that was pretty deep. And I was like, oh, it's that too? Okay.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense.
Yeah, I thought it was really nice cause you kind of got to learn a little bit more about the characters and their dynamic.
Mm-hmm. So. And we'll talk about each of it, but I just think off the bat, this episode was a huge turning point for the season for me. I feel like I was like, this is why we're tuning in. The way it was just directed from beginning to end, and we see kind of a pattern going on with how they have the beginning shots and how it's always closed at the end, which is really cool to see that no shot is wasted. Everything's a point. But let's kick it off with Diedre fam. So I called this the process of coming out and familial bonds. So Scott tries to come out to Diedre, and this was a really emotional scene. This was one of the cases where both actors were so strong in their own way. And I think it touched on a really, really deep thing that people have to go through. And obviously being in a marriage makes it a little more difficult. But what were you guys thinking when you were watching it?
About time. I mean, I feel like Deirdre's been doing such a good job with kind of holding her composure. But I just feel like it's well overdue. I think you should have told her, maybe when you found out you were gay. But that's neither here nor there. I feel like their marriage would be whatever relationship that they're going to have afterwards would be a lot better if they just have that conversation right now and then figure it out. Because her telling her daughter, oh, we're never going to get a divorce is like, well, but you are.
Not realistic.
Yeah, you are. So let's not lie to her and say, it's not going to happen. And then, I don't know. I just think it's a lot of people going in circles with lies, and they need to just be open about it. So,
but they're lying to themselves.
I was just about to say that. I was really disappointed in Diedre. Diedre in this scene. I was really upset with her because she didn't give Scott his moment.
Yeah.
And it's such a big burden to, like you said, I've been imagining this since I was 13 and I can't even say it. And then when you finally feel like you're ready to tell your truth and that person won't listen.
Right.
I was so disappointed in her because like you said, she has been keeping her composure so perfectly, surprised, wow, she's an adult. She's handling this quite well. And then she didn't. And I'm like, it killed it for me. I was so disappointed.
She's in denial.
Yeah.
For sure.
I wouldn't say I was disappointed. I just feel like it's really hard to acknowledge that reality when you're gonna have to embrace something that's totally different now and like have your life totally like shaken up. And she's already seen like how change has affected Jeff Pickles, her brother, in a very negative way. From her perspective, at least, you can tell she thinks he's like lost it. So I feel like she's trying so hard to preserve everything she has, even if it's not real, because she'd rather have that reality than have something that's completely unfamiliar. And I get where she's coming from, because it's like she doesn't want her daughter to be traumatized. She thinks that this is going to be trauma for her daughter, that it's going to shake up the whole family. She'd rather just have it be like a pretty little lie that's just like tied up and hidden and not addressed. Or maybe she's not ready to hear it. Like, why should he
saw it, so.
why should she have to be ready for him to speak his truth when she was the one who was betrayed? Like, that's me playing devil's advocate there. Like, why does she have to?
No, and there's a point, I definitely see everyone's point, because it was such a humanizing scene. Like, I don't think there was no one wrong. I agree. I was personally disappointed by Diedre only because I know so many people who have come out, and that process is agonizing.
Yeah.
And he even said, like, just saying it feels cathartic. But on the other side, she is getting cheated on, and she does have a child that she's really worried about.
She's screaming.
Yeah. But Maddie gives us a lot of comedic relief this episode.
Yeah.
In the freakiest little way. She gets a tooth out, and the tooth fairy has to come, of course. And the mom, and Diedre says, I can never find her teeth. And I'm thinking, like, what is she doing?
Right.
The next day, she's like, hey, Mom. And she has a puppet with all her baby teeth sewed in.
Mr. Chompers.
Yes.
And did you hear? It literally had the sound?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was like.
But it was also cute because it's like now she's the daughter of the puppet maker, and so she's good at doing this type of stuff. So it's like, and then I imagine myself like, how do you deal with that as a mom? Like when you just see your daughter come to you, and like, do you think it's creepy, or do you just kind of say like, all right, we're gonna throw Mr. Chomper away? But that was weird.
It's like that ugly painting that you don't want to tell your kid it's horrible, but you gotta put it on the fridge. Like,
oh my gosh.
Like, I'd be like proud, like, wow, nice stitch work, but using human remains is not ideal.
You should probably color in the lines.
Yeah, I don't know. I would have supported her. Come on. Maybe, again, optimism. Good job, girlfriend, with the dead puppet.
Right. And maybe it'll inspire a character on the show. Maybe. You never know.
Mina.
But yeah, no, I love it. I feel like she's me.
Yeah, I knew it.
say that.
Mina, if you guys, I love being on this panel with Mina in particular because her humor fits this perfectly. So as soon as I saw her be like, Mr. Chompers, I was like, that was Mina as a child.
Yeah,
maybe your human hair, but something.
I wasn't that crazy.
I was an eccentric. She's like on the scale of Helga to who I don't know who else was weird, but Helga was pretty like.
I
don't know why. I
don't know why anyone didn't. That was I don't know. Helga was a very different, touched child.
Well, she was interesting. But with Maddie, she's the one who's bringing, I think, the complexity to Deirdre's situation and the fact of her brother dealing with the loss of a child. So I think it's mixing everything up in her head. But she did say that line, which I think one of you said, where she said, name a happy child that's dealt with divorce. What do you think that Deirdre's next step should be? And do you think that's true? Because I personally don't.
Believe?
That I don't think there are happy children with divorce. Obviously, it's hard and you're going to have to compromise and make it work and put in way more effort. But I know a lot of great, happy people with divorced parents.
Right. Oh, I don't know, because my parents have been married for so long that if they were to get a divorce, I think now that I'm older, I could probably handle it. But as a child, you'd be like, oh my gosh, like these two people are in love and now they're not together anymore. And then it makes you feel like, I know a lot of kids always say that they think it's their fault that their parents are getting a divorce. So I don't know how I would feel if I saw my parents at that young of an age separating. But at this age, I'd understand, because I'm like, I understand relationships are just difficult sometimes and you just have to break apart. But I don't know. I think every child goes through some type of emotional trauma post divorce. I don't think you can avoid that. So
Yeah.
I can't really speak on it. I single mom household, so I will at least say this, because this to me is just something that happened that was difficult growing up, and you've had to find a positive way to spin on it. I never think that running from the truth is ever a good idea.
Yeah.
I stand firm behind the truth. Will at some point it'll eventually come to light regardless.
Right.
So you might as well, at least try to do it on your timing or not. But I think it'll be okay. It will be difficult. I'm definitely not saying it'll be easy, but through any difficult time in our lives, I feel like it makes us better at some point in time.
Time heals all.
Yeah, and at least to help someone else. So, we don't live our lives for ourselves sometimes. We live it for someone else to say, you know what, maybe it is possible to come through that. So, that's my so.
Totally.
And on the flip side of Diedre, she's dealing with Seb being in her ear about Jeff and wants to do this ice capades with Jeff without Jeff, but use Jeff's molded head.
Which I just hate. I'm so irritated. Like, I get it. Like, yes, Jeff is going through whatever he's going through, but don't do that to him. Like, this is his show. He's made the show what it is. I feel like if he's never gone crazy thus far, let him have a moment. Like, don't just take this away from him because he goes through one huge traumatic moment. Like, I don't know. I just think he's doing a lot.
He is.
He's doing a lot. Like, he is. When he's dead, okay, animate him or something. But even that is just weird. Like, just cancel the show. Yeah, but
I love how he even found voice actors who could do a perfect Jeff Pickles.
And
it's
crazy.
It shows you how this guy's but it's also a business mindset, that separation and compartmentalization of business and family when you work together. I don't know how they do it. It feels a little heartless, but I get where it's coming from. You have a show that needs to go on.
But he's still here.
I
and
know.
That's what her point was.
It was so ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, because I think even when you hear Bugs Bunny today, it's like, oh my gosh, that's not the original Bugs Bunny.
Yeah.
Like, that's what's weird. But that's also a cartoon versus a real life person. So I feel like at some point there has to be you have to look at your moral compass and think, is this worth it? But and that's your son.
It's like if someone dubbed Mr. Rogers with a new voice as he's speaking.
Weird.
Oh gosh, I really wish Seb would have heard Jeff's Jeff's saying, have you ever seen RoboCop? He's saying, first of all, I just love that part. I love that part, and I thought of Mina during this part. I was like, ooh, she's loving this scene right here when he had the whole mask thing. I know we'll get to, but I wish he would have said that instead of saying it to Diedre, which she needed to hear. I wish he would have said it to Seb. I know you're talking on Seb wanting to replace him, but I would have loved for Seb to see him grab his cojones.
Yeah. No, I agree. That conversation was the second most emotional conversation, obviously the most being between Jill and Jeff. But Diedre does go forward with the mask making in the scene Takira's talking about, where Jeff walks in and it's like seeing your wife cheating, basically. How dare you make a molded face of me? And Diedre apologizes, and you can tell she's really emotional. This is after her husband attempted to come out to her and said that she didn't know what to do after his kid died, and instead of and she doesn't think that she can help him anymore. She can't be there for him the way she used to be, which gives us an idea to their background. It seems like she was always babying Jeff, and that's why he's so naive and innocent. And then we see the RoboCop scene where the music gets so dark and scary, and you don't know what Jeff's gonna do, and he says that it's gonna get way more violent. Mina, what did you think about that?
Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like it was such an interesting comparison because we see a darker side of Jeff Pickles now. A side that we never knew existed, because even when all these horrible things are happening, he still has this levity to him, this lightness, and all of a sudden he's referencing things that are dark. It almost seems like he's making threats in a weird way, kind of in a passive aggressive way, you don't know what could happen. Like, you never saw the end of RoboCop. But he's also trying to, like, rationalize something that's happening in the world. And so much of this scene reminds me of other scenes Jim Carrey has been in other movies. Like, we'll get into it later, but even The Truman Show, like, deals with this theme of, like, what's real, what isn't, and this idea of, like, someone trying to control you, which I think is just this constant theme in Jim Carrey's life, both professionally and his public image, where he talks about it a lot.
Right.
So I love that it's even in this show, too. I love that.
Great point, Mina. Great. And that leads perfectly into our next topic, which will be Jeff and Will and his other threat that you're talking about. But before we get into that, Takira has some announcements.
Yes, have a little favor to ask all of our lovely AfterBuzzers. But hey, AfterBuzzers, our network produces after shows for nearly all of your favorite TV shows, from dramas, reality TV, sci-fi, and more. There is absolutely no other network that works harder to serve television fans. But look, we need your help. We are asking that you please subscribe to one or more, because you know we got more, of our YouTube channels. But by subscribing to our channel, YouTube will suggest content that is tailor-made for just you, and you'll help AfterBuzz continue to grow. If you are worried about those pesky notifications, I am here to say, don't be, because they're completely optional. And if you hit that subscribe button, right below, we'll give you a couple seconds. Thank you on this channel. Check out our other AfterBuzz YouTube channels as well. Let us know that you did in the comments, and we will thank you on air. But for now, thank you being the best fans, the absolute best fans, and thank you for helping us to be the ESPN of TV talk.
Yes. Well said, Takira.
Yeah.
So this topic I titled Kids Being the Parent, because we see Jeff continuously kind of degrading in a sense of shedding off layers of himself, but in the process being very childlike. And Will, in the process of dealing with his grief, has kind of grown up, not always in the best ways, like obviously with smoking pot and hanging out with kids way older than him. But he is, in his thought processes, I think Mina was saying a few weeks ago, are so complex, especially for his age. So it begins with Jeff trying to find Will because he thinks his cell phone's not working because the girl he slept with, Vivian, the cancer patient, isn't responding. And he's so naive and doesn't understand really anything about this side of things. So he tries to find Will because he's the tech one in the family, and he has a square off with one of the stoner kids, and basically the stoner kid was asking him about about the rumor about him killing people in Lebanon, and he went on to this huge weird conversation about how it's so easy to kill someone, but he could never. So that was just an interesting thing. That was like the next step to the RoboCop and the ending. It was really dark. And then they go to the cell phone store, and they have this moment where the cell phone guy is basically about to tell him she just doesn't like you, and Will steps in. Did you think that Will was going to do that?
He had a cell phone in his hand, so I'm like, if Jeff leaves this store pretty upset, Will's probably not going to get that cell phone. So at first I was thinking, okay, Will only did it just because he wants a new cell phone. But I think, I said a couple of episodes ago, I'm waiting for Will to see something in his dad that he's just like, man, like, I'm aspiring to be like this man. He's not just really, really nice, but he does kind of have a little, oomph to him. He actually has a backbone. So I was a little surprised, but then not at the same time, because I'm waiting for that moment that Will takes his dad's side. But
I think he has such a kind heart. Like, this is the one scene where we really see it. Like, despite that tough exterior where he's trying to act like he's cool and like he's into doing drugs and hanging out with the cool bad kids, whatever you want to call them, we see that he really does feel for his dad, and it's the most endearing thing I've ever noticed, where he would rather spare his dad's feelings because of how much he loves him and how he knows he's been through so much than see his dad hurt. Like, he legitimately feels bad and wants to protect him, which is something a parent would do for a child. So that's like such a great observation on your end to say that he's like taking on this role that most children wouldn't take on. And for him to
Yeah.
like be aware of it and try to step in a way where he's trying to like, you know, and in a way where the dad doesn't even realize what he's doing, you know? The dad is blind to it.
And I think it is caused partly from Will being a good-hearted kid, which I totally agree with. But the other part of it was this scene had like my favorite revelation, I think, of the season, where I don't know what carrier guy was saying that what bill is this is you have 2 lines, and this is where we find out that Mr. Pickles has been paying the bills, rent, utilities, phone, like trash, everything for the man who hit the car where Phil, his other son, died.
Crazy.
Well, I like how in the beginning of the episode you don't know who they are. Because they show,
Yes.
like, someone throws something at the house and says murderer. And so you kind of obviously, you know, you assume just with context. But when you see that, you're like, okay, that's random. And then longer as we go into the episode, it's like, oh, that's the family. And at the end of the day, that is a family who lost something in that accident as well. So, I mean, I don't know. I do understand, we'll get into it. I do understand the anger that goes into that because I don't know how I would feel. And then with her asking him about the car, like the insurance, like I don't want to get a car off of the insurance money that was given to me, you know, from Phil. So like, it's just a lot. There's so much to figure out after that type of thing happens that I don't know. Like this episode to me was like, oh my gosh, I've never even thought about it from that perspective of paying for that other family who literally has nothing either. So, you know.
And he said the most powerful quote of this scene, I think, was when he said, hate doesn't punish who you think it does. And I think this was a turning moment for Will. And that's part of the reason he stepped in, to see his dad being the person that he originally thought he was. Like the kid show hero and a hero in real life. He just has a lot of quirks, obviously.
I love that quote so much, just because I feel like it shows you that hate is not gonna hurt that person. It's gonna hurt yourself and whoever you come in contact with. Like, hate is very contagious, and I think like negative energy in general is contagious. So when you have that, it spreads like wildfire. And I love that he would say that quote because it's kind of cryptic in a way, and you can extrapolate whatever meaning you want from it, but that's the meaning that I got from it.
I just don't know if I'd want to help I don't know. I don't know if I'd want to help that person.
Yeah.
I wouldn't.
I don't.
I don't think I could. I mean, it would be hard. It would be hard for me to want, because I would have so much
animosity and anger.
The way he thinks about it is so logical and kind and generous, to think like, oh, it was just
Jesus
a bunch of
do?
electrons like in motion, and this was an accident. It was like an act of God. So
I mean,
it takes a lot of energy to be upset. It takes more energy to be upset and hateful than it does to be kind and just. And I think for him, it's almost like a cleansing of himself, like a monthly reminder, because, you know, those checks come out monthly, a monthly reminder to, in spite of all of the negative things that happen to you, still be a better person, a kind person, no matter how difficult it is, because it's hard as hell. But yeah, I love that part. And on the parent-son thing, I think Jeff was also like kind of begging for someone to tell him that's okay. So it's
Will is I don't like Will. I just can't right now. I'm not here for Will, but
That's okay.
He hasn't won me over. He's a child,
Why,
so I give
though?
him that.
Why?
I just think he is a punk to his dad, and I think that's not, one, I just wasn't raised that way to ever speak to my dad in any type of way. Like, the only reason that you exist is because of me. The only reason that you have clothes is because of me. The only reason that you have this phone right now is because of me. So for me, seeing him, interact with him, knowing that, again, you don't know what it feels like for me to be a parent and lose my child. You lost your sibling, and that's one thing. That's a different, that's a feeling. But I lost my child. So, whatever feelings that you have, whatever anger, and whatever your mom is telling you, because I feel like that also is a dynamic, too, that we haven't gotten into. However your mom is treating me, I'm still your father, and you respect me as so, and I feel like Will does not give him that. So.
That's a very fair point.
I can see that.
I don't think I disagree with you. Like, I get
We
what
love
you're
the
saying.
controversy.
I get what you're saying. I love Will's. I think when you're because like I'm a child of divorce, so like my parents divorced when I was in 4th grade, and I totally understand what it's like to like, you're like seeing what one person says about the other, and your opinions are being shaped in a certain way. And when you're older, you'll kind of figure out for yourself that both people are right. Like, everything everyone is saying is right because everyone is entitled to their own opinion, and it's both right because you can have your own version of reality and still have it be truthful, just like someone else has their own version of reality.
Perspective.
And it's still truthful. Exactly. Perspective. So I feel like if his mom is telling him all these things and has all these feelings towards, you know, her husband, then of course he's going to be affected by that. But he's not affected to the point where he thinks what his dad did is awful. He's just so touched by it. And we see that because Judy Greer's character even says, wow, like, my son was touched by this, but how could you?
Yeah.
You know? So it's not like she's influenced his opinion and told him, how could your dad do this? Like, he still thinks, like, wow, my dad's an amazing person. That, like, you don't hate him? Really? Like,
I'm just talking about on a grand scale, talking to someone who is your father, your parent. I'm not for that. I think
Yeah, I
that,
get
like,
what you're
aside from this recent episode, Will, to me, has not won me over as a viewer. I think he's a great person, but...
Well, that's good. That
kids
means
age
he's
are
doing a
not
good job,
empathetic,
though. I think he's
Right.
supposed to be a polarizing character.
Yeah.
Right.
But at a certain point, like, as a kid, you're egocentric. The world revolves around you, and you don't develop that empathy until later on. Like, it's because you're the child. You're not the parent. Like, why would you put yourself in your parents' shoes to figure out how they're feeling about something? That's very rare for a child to do that. I've never seen a child do that.
Yeah. Well, I do think he was the more mature one. It leads perfectly, thanks Mina, again, to Jeff and Jill, because I think they both had their moments where they finally were emotionally released. And this was the whole latter half of this episode, from the Jeff and Jill scene to the end, I was tearing, I was smiling, I was sad, I was every emotion. And it starts with Jill visiting Jeff, and like you said, she confronted him and told him, let me start this off by saying Will actually really appreciated what you told him.
He was touched.
And I love that. And then she counters it, because we do know that Jeff had a background of being controlling with the money, and they are millionaires, and somehow Jill never saw any of that. And I get, as a woman, you didn't want some shoes, Jeff. Why'd you hold on to the shoes?
That's like, get your own job.
She does have a job. She takes care of home. That is
No,
her
I'm saying,
job.
Jeff, that's what Jeff is thinking. Like, you know what, girl, get your own shoes with your own check.
He's just very frugal, and I do appreciate that about him. My dad's like that, and I see that, like, buying superficial stuff really doesn't fill anything.
Yeah.
And the moment that I wanted to talk about was obviously at the end, where they have this emotional release together, and then she turns around and becomes like
the
the
bearer of
fire
bad news.
inside of her,
Yeah.
and just gave it to him real. She's like, you're Santa Claus and I'm Mrs. Claus. I don't live in the North Pole anymore. I live in reality. And this is why I said this was kind of the opposition of naive optimism, being Jeff, like the most optimistic person I've ever seen. And this existential cynicism, which of Jill, Judy Greer, which would be impossible not to feel as your kid was killed. So what did you guys feel about what she said? Like, let's unpack everything she talked about. The text, her son, and the way basically Jeff is living life.
I mean, I get it, because she's like, why? Like, who would want to live in someone else's shadow? Like, who would want that? I think it's really difficult to live in someone's shadow where you feel like your trauma is not equal to someone else's trauma. Like, your pain is not as important as someone else's pain because you're not, like, a public figure. I think, like, relationships like that are really tough unless you're okay being in the shadows, unless you're okay, you know, supporting your man, your husband, and having them have that spotlight moment and not feeling insecure or jealous about it. But I think it was very painful when, like, her trauma goes unrecognized and he's dealing with the situation in a way that she can't fully fathom, that she feels kind of like, I don't know, like I get why she's so upset, because to feel like someone is perfect and they can do no wrong, and when someone, like, reacts to things in a way that's so, like, non-confrontational and so understanding, sometimes you just want someone to fight back and show some type of passion or, like, anger or some sort of emotion, for someone to just be like, okay, it's in God's hands, this happened. Like, that could elicit a really insane and, like, hurtful response, because you're like, wow, you don't care about what happened in the same way that I do. Like, this was our son. How can you be dealing with this in this way? Like, this hurt me more than anything in my entire life, and you're handling it in a way where you're almost like okay with it and saying it's a sign of God, like, oh, like you're accepting what happened without the rage.
Yeah.
So
I think this blow up happened because this is the first time that they have talked about how one another feel about losing Phil. And so I think that it definitely plays a big part. This is completely new. I feel like if they would have slowly baby step took the time to get to that point where they talked about it, maybe it wouldn't have been so big. But sometimes it being so big, it needs to happen so that that person can receive it to really understand how much it hurts. But first, I just want to say this is the part. This scene right here is what Judy Greer used to audition for the show in the first place.
Oh, wow.
So the fact that she nailed this is what got her the job.
She did.
And so I just kudos and congratulations to her on that. But I couldn't help but to think during this part, I've been kind of in this situation, not losing a son or anything, of course, but feeling a hurt that my husband was getting more recognition for. And so it was so interesting to me because I couldn't help but not think of the situation when all I wanted to do, I didn't feel appreciated. Like you said, I didn't feel like my hurt mattered. Mm-hmm. But what I loved, and I think what Jill would have loved, is my husband stepped up to the plate and reminded people that we both shared this loss. We both shared this pain. And so I feel like in this circumstance or in this situation, when you're the one that is high, you almost have to come down to pull that other person up and share that moment. So if Jeff would have stepped up, thank you so much for the cards. Mrs. Pickles is also feeling a traumatic pain. Thank you both so much for showing both of us the shot. At least acknowledge her in that this pain is shared. I feel like she would have definitely felt more appreciative and maybe not hold that resentment in, which would have led to her maybe finding another man. And
he had no idea though. He had no idea. He's like, the letters were addressed to both of us.
Yeah, but she also needed to open her mouth a little earlier than not.
Okay, I was gonna say that's how I feel. I feel like he's a public figure. Of course they're gonna write letters to him. I mean, they may or may not know that he's married at all. That's just real life. It's not like he said, "Oh, fans, only address these letters to me." It's not his fault that he is who he is. The reason that you asking for different cars and bags is because of the check that I get. So I feel like I'm just saying, I feel like there's so much pressure that is put on Jeff. I'm sorry. And I feel like he's getting it from every which way and it's not fair.
Yeah.
That's just how I feel. But and him taking the bigger step and saying, you know what? I know that this family is the reason that we lost a part of our family, but it is the godly way. And unfortunately, I do look at it that way. Phil losing his life was a part of God's plan, even though we don't want to think that, but that's my own faith. But when you have that type of dynamic and someone who obviously is of faith like Jeff is, you can't really argue that, because if that's how he believes, if that's what he feels the message is, then it is what it is. And at least he's trying to help Judy understand, hey, this is bad. This is really bad. But what can we do to move forward and move on? Yeah. Me helping this family may help me in some type of way. Have you asked me about that?
Yeah.
You're just being mad about something that you don't understand. And I feel like ignorance only spews more ignorance. Mm-hmm. So, but that's, my take.
No, communication.
Yes, communication.
I feel like, and we'll see where their relationship progresses, but she did say keywords like loved. So it seems like they've almost hit that mark. It's past. But I do have to say, we did give Judy Greer shout outs as she deserves. Yes. That was amazing. Yes. But the face, just close-up shot of Jim Carrey going through pure devastation and sadness, hit rock bottom. The first time we've seen him show real devastation, one tear rolls down his eyes, and then you wait and you wait and you wait, and we get that text, just like the episode I feel like was staged. We see the negativity in the beginning, and then at the end we're like, whoa!
Yes.
That was that's what gave me the chills when he got
I
that
have the
text.
chills now. You just explaining it is giving me chills.
And Vivian, her phone did break, you guys.
Whatever.
Or she just decided, I guess I'll text it.
Yeah.
We all send those texts.
Realistic.
Man, I was gonna say,
What's more realistic?
I was like, that situation is so real and so relatable because
My phone was on silent. I didn't even hear it.
yeah.
Come on. Yeah.
Okay.
Just like how?
Well, before we get into our special segment, news and gossip, I do want to say if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to hit that like button and leave us a comment so we can keep the conversation going past this show right now. And if you're listening on iTunes, hello, we love you. Leave us 5-star ratings and a comment there as well. And let's get into our special segment. Mina taking the reins of this. Can you explain what we're covering of Jim Carrey Gems?
Yes, definitely. So this is my favorite movie. It's called The Truman Show. It's one of my favorites. We're about to play it right now, and this is the scene at the very end. Spoiler alert. Raquel, close your ears.
I'm literally not.
I am so sorry. I'm so sorry. But
no, it's okay.
If you haven't seen this, I mean, it's like forever old. It's like
no,
years
it's on
and
Netflix. So trust me, it's on a watch list.
years and years ago. But yes, we are about to play it right now. Just waiting on the engineer in the booth. Yeah. So he's on the boat, and this is when he decides to venture out and discover the world for himself. And you're gonna see very soon that he realizes it's not real. And this is so devastating, but also a major breakthrough. And there are so many parallels with this scene and what Jeff Pickles was going through.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's where he crashes.
And it's interesting that Rocky was bringing up kind of like the voice of God in terms of this, because a lot of critics have said this movie was kind of a thesis on Christianity, philosophy, simulated reality, existentialism, and reality television. So such a great great pick, because it does kind of filter into this show.
Right.
And this was a huge financial success, debuting to critical acclaim. It earned numerous nominations, as it should have: Academy Awards, Golden Globes.
We can keep playing the video.
Yeah, British. Yeah, you can keep
coming back.
British Academy Film Awards. But what makes this your favorite?
It plays with the concept of like reality, and this was before reality TV was even really a thing. It wasn't as huge. Like now, reality TV is like everywhere. Like we can't really escape it. But it just deals with like him trying to figure out who he is, but while the whole world is watching, so he doesn't know what's real, what's fake, like what's like socially constructed. And it's so powerful. Like I don't know how to fully articulate how I feel about this movie, because I've never seen a movie like it.
Yeah.
Like even movies that play with reality, like Inception and Maniac and a lot of other ones, they're just nothing compares to The Truman Show.
It does, yeah.
Like
I
this
agree.
was the original show that played with this concept in such a creative way, so original, and Jim Carrey's performance is truly remarkable in this movie.
Yeah.
Like it brings you to tears. It's so beautiful. It's I don't know. I can't.
I agree.
I don't know what
It
you're
speaks for
talking about,
itself. It's beautiful. Yeah, it speaks for itself.
Yeah, and he always takes on roles like this.
He does.
He thrives in dramatic roles. And
Challenging roles too.
And reality, like what's reality? Like The Mask. It's
Yes.
it's like oh
exactly.
yeah.
I was talking about
She
that.
almost picked that
I was
one.
gonna choose that clip too. Like just the concept of when I put on the
Yeah.
mask.
Don't get. We'll
I'm a
definitely
different
cover
person.
the mask.
Yeah, we'll
Yeah.
cover that later
But
on.
thank you, Mina. Great
Please
choice.
Watch The Truman Show, guys. I'm
Yes.
serious. You will never find a movie like The
We
Truman
can
Show.
do some
what?
commentary.
I love just like real quick, because I think such a big part that we didn't talk on was the Jimmy, the guy at the beginning of the episode, the little boy, the little African American
Thank
boy.
you.
Yes, at the beginning of the episode and tying into the end. At the beginning, we're like, a towel, a sheet on a barrel, really? Like this poor little boy is gonna die. Like that's probably what all of us were thinking. But at the end, it's like it kind of gives that, to me, again, that optimistic feeling of it's possible, even though it's probably
Yes.
not.
No. Totally.
But
It's a scene
I
that
love
made me
that.
cry.
yeah, it made me cry. And it kind of reminds me of the Truman Show. I just feel like it's something that he felt that he was going. I'm not going to give any spoilers, but he felt that he was going there. I'm going to just keep it at that. And he he didn't quite make it, but it's almost like a reverse effect for this episode and Jimmy. So I think that was really if anyone knows in more detail about the name Jimmy and Gertie, I found my own little like spin on what it is, but so I'll leave it in the comments below. But if you know any more info on why the shirt, why was it a little black boy, why was the dog named Gertie, drop a little comment. I'm interested to see what everyone says.
No, I'm so glad you brought that up, and it paired to just tie that up with Will being with Seb, and to Jill's point that magic tricks won't fix him smoking pot. It kind of did.
It did.
And I think there's one other connection we see that's left this episode so optimistic, and the most optimistic episode we've seen.
Well, of course, it was the driver.
Oh, yes.
At the end.
Yes, and that was true. It did happen. He couldn't walk. He was with his daughter, who also had to play the parent almost in that scene.
Exactly.
But we are running out of time, but I do want to make sure we get into Rocky's news and gossip.
No problem. Yes, news and gossip. So you guys know Jim Carrey is a very political person. I feel like he has been recently anyway. So have you guys been kind of going on with the Brett Kavanaugh hearing?
Week.
It kind of happened all suddenly, but so as we know, Jim Carrey likes to sketch. That's his thing. And so he actually put up a sketch 2 days ago, and it's of Lindsey Graham. So if you guys don't know about what's been going on with the hearing, Lindsey Graham had actually interjected in somebody was having a moment, and I think it was Brett Kavanaugh who was actually having a speech, and so Lindsey Graham kind of interjected and said, like, this is crazy, this is ridiculous. And so to respond to that, Jim Carrey had tweeted, "Ever wonder why women don't report sexual abuse? Look no further than the hideous and hateful face of Lindsey Graham, who offered nothing but anger and absolute disdain to Dr. Christine Blasey Ford, following her courageous and very credible testimony. Talk about a disgrace."
Yeah.
So he put this sketch up as we. It's a very
it's
animated.
accurate.
Yeah, it's an animated version of Lindsey Graham, and this actually, if you guys have been watching the hearing, it was kind of crazy because he just seemed very upset, obviously, which kind of, is weird versus Mrs. Ford's testimony. She was very calm, and also Brett Kavanaugh was kind of a little on the heated side, but that's okay. We're going to move.
Very heated.
Yes, very.
I will tell you guys.
Yeah, no, very heated. Obviously, somebody has some things that they
heated.
don't want to admit to, but we're not going to cover that on the show. But yes, in lighter news, though, Tom Hanks is set to star as Mr. Rogers.
Look at that.
I know.
So good.
Soups. I know. I'm excited. I'm excited. So this is actually the first picture that they revealed to the world, letting everyone know that Mr. Rogers is coming back to life, and he's coming back as Tom Hanks, and Tom Hanks is going to be coming back as life as Mr. Rogers.
That is perfect casting.
It's
Perfect.
You know,
Who else can do that? I'm trying to think right now.
I feel like I don't know. I don't know how I feel about the casting, but I'm gonna watch it regardless. I also was not a Mr. Rogers person. I feel like that was a little bit before my time.
I loved it.
I'm still on Doodle Bops and Barney.
Girl, it was for 60 years for crying out loud. It was until 2018. So
That's the thing is I did not watch Mr. Rogers,
we'll
but
watch it together. It's pretty good.
I don't know.
Thank you, Rocky. That
No
was
problem.
like really good. You
No, I
hit like
love that.
basically every corner. And Jim Carrey, I love your pictures. Keep spreading
yes,
the knowledge
absolutely.
in your art.
And also, Mr. Rogers is set to come out October 2019. So.
Ooh. Thank you, Rocky.
got a year.
Nice.
Okay, we have to wrap up, but really quickly, one-line predictions.
Your AfterBuzz TV predictions.
Rocky.
Ooh, Will is going to no longer be a butt to his dad, and I think that he's gonna start to hang out with his dad a little bit more. He's gonna kind of kick his potential stepfather to the curb a little bit more. That's my guess.
Even though I don't believe it, I'm going to drop it because a fan did. Jill and Mr. Pickles will get back together in a different light.
Ooh.
I 100% agree with that prediction.
Yeah?
By the way.
Okay.
I feel that coming along.
Okay.
Also, this doesn't have to do with predictions. I just wanted a huge shout out to the very beginning of the show where they showed the Mexican farmers speaking about like existential questions and portraying, Mexican farmers in a totally different light than what we've seen them being portrayed as in the media, cinema, television. I thought that was so great.
Shout out.
Breaking stereotypes in every single way.
Okay.
Huge shout
hard
out
workers.
to the writing of this show.
We are in
Snaps.
a political climate.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes, great point. Love it. I think he's gonna move forward with the text message and get it on again with Vivian, and I'm so here for it.
Me too. Because at first first, like, honestly, I thought he was a lost cause, but then when he had that moment, I was like, oh, okay, you still got it in you, Jim. What?
I mean, she, she expressed herself that she was enjoying.
Yes, she is. But we have to wrap it up, you guys. We thank you so much for tuning in. We will be back next week, same time. But until then, where can we find you guys?
You can find me on all social media at Raquel Harris TV.
You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Takira_Shabrae, and in the comments, coming for them.
Okay.
Hey everyone, you can find me across social media at Mina Makes Magic, and please don't forget to check out The Truman Show.
Yes, that's a truth.
Plug.
You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Steph Sabraw, and we will see you guys next week. Thanks for tuning in.
Bye.
Our founder, Keven Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.